Namaste, sir. Namaste, ma'am. So, I had a question that, as you said, Donald Trump made a statement that there are only two genders.
As of today, it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female.
Now, when we look into it, we have seen in Indian traditions, we have been taught in ISP classes too, that there is Shikhandi as well. And also, the Kinnar Samaj is right now in the Kumbh Mela too. So, what do you think the Indian tradition should be?
The Indian tradition is that there are all these other combinations of male, female, but that's a 1%. It is not something that that 1% is oppressed. And therefore, that 1% being oppressed has to be imposed on the other 99% because they are the oppressor. There is nobody who oppressed the Hijras to become Hijras. They're becoming Hijras and that's their choice. They don't have to be, nobody is requiring them and they're not requiring the other people to become like them. Right? So this is the difference. It's the politicization, weaponization of a group of people to make the other people guilty, and then they have to be apologetic, and then there is a revenge. So this politics of revenge is the problem. As far as I'm concerned, Marxism is right that there are oppressed people, there are poor people, there are racial oppression, there is religious, all kind of stuff. But Marxism is about destroying society because it says a thesis should have an antithesis, and that there should be a conflict until you break them apart, and then something else can come. So it wants to break society by creating narratives which will oppose the society. So this is from their point of view, the whole LGBT is more of a weapon. Now in our book, Snakes in the Ganga, we have endorsements from LGBT people that they want to be Hindu while being LGBT. But they're being pressured that your whole culture has to be dismantled. It is the dismantling of your culture that we have a problem with. But as an individual, you can practice any gender, whatever you want. Our culture is very friendly to that. So that nuance is very important to separate. I'm glad you asked this question.
But there's one more thing also. See, there's another thing that we have a problem with, and that is the systematic social engineering of young people. So the UN is guilty of that. The UNESCO is guilty of that. The WHO is guilty of that. So they take young children and they say, you know what, when sexuality should not even be a topic, right? So it's a private thing. It's what family teaches their children, and it's a private matter. But then they bring it to the fore. It's in every subject. It's asking children to try out the other gender, encouraging it, celebrating it when groups of children come out, even youngsters, groups of them come out on social media as non-binary or something, and they're all celebrated as some heroes. So this is the social engineering part that we oppose.
Yeah. So just to continue that, the equivalent thing in India, which is not happening in our tradition, but now the laws are making it happen. But the equivalent thing in India would be that if there are trans people, therefore we should go through the whole school system and ask everybody to experiment and become trans. Okay, mainstream it so that as a matter of something that we normalize it and make it for everybody should try it. That is not our tradition. Nowhere in our tradition was there a society which said, you know what, to sympathize with these trans people, all of us tomorrow we're going to become trans. Nowhere like that, right? It's more like we respect them, let them be who they are, they respect us, we are different, they're different, and leave it like that. So, not politicizing it and not turning it into an agenda to kind of take that 1% and impose it on the other people and create a conflict by doing so. That's the big difference.
Thank
Okay.
you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, let's have the next question.
Hello sir, hello ma'am. So, till a week ago, India could boast about being the world tech industry software drivers. But with the recent launches of the new AI LLM models like the DeepSeek R1, it threatens to disturb the global tech industry, which is at currently I think is led by USA. So, do you think that the credit goes to the Chinese education system? And I ask you this because you have compared the American education system and Chinese education system in your book.
I think that China has built the last two generations of very, very solid citizens. Emotionally very strong, unlike Indians who are emotionally very weak. Unless if you criticize them, they'll say, "Sir, hamara feel good kharab kar diya aapne." As if I'm supposed to make them feel good. I'm not here to make you feel good, and nobody makes me feel good. Nobody ever did, and I don't care. Okay, so you can't just be very practical and say, okay, this is what it is, this is what it is. I find that with working with people here, they're all very touchy, very easily, they're fragile, they fall apart. And whereas if you talk to them very like a bacha, very nicely, voodoo, you can get anything out of them. Okay, so this is a weakness of our society. Chinese are tough. They've been made strong, and that's a kshatriyata they have been taught. We don't have that. And so first they have the kshatriyata of being strong, tough, handle under pressure. They're not going to fall apart, and they're not so vulnerable and susceptible to selling out because they're so emotionally weak. They sell out to anybody who hugs them and gives them a pat on the back. Chinese are not into that. They have been raised with that rigor, and their standard of STEM is very high. Do not believe this propaganda that they can only copy. That is not true. They learned how to copy in order to jump ahead. We did not even copy. Imagine the following. We've had tech people, Indian tech people, running banks, running pharma, running all kind of American industries in the United States, running the back office. So we could have copied all the know-how of how to make fintech products. We could have made all the know-how how to make financial and pharma and all these kind of products, right? We never did, because we are content being the coolie, the tech coolies, workers working for these people. We are kind of like the Shudras. If you were to consider, we do not have the intellectual property, which is owned by the Microsoft and the Facebooks and all these people. They own the tech intellectual property. We are the labor. We are providing labor to them. So China is not providing labor to them. China started doing the manufacturing labor, cheap labor, or like we did tech labor. But China learned manufacturing, learned all the designs, all the engineering of the American products, started building their own everything from cars to EVs to whatever, every single thing. Because they were manufacturing for the Americans, they learned how to do it for themselves and started competing with their own products. You see, so we did not do the same with tech, saying, okay, if we have 50,000 people working for Microsoft, you know what, we're going to build our own operating system and beat the MS Windows. We didn't do that. We didn't say we have 20,000 people doing work for Google, so we'll build our own search engine and we'll outsmart them. We didn't do that. Chinese did that. More credit to the Chinese. So I think they are number one and number two, US and China, in this tech race. India is not even in the top 5. India is supplying AI engineers, I grant you that, and some of the best. But they are not working for India. They are working for USA.
Thank you.
Okay, providing labor to work on we are in part of Team USA, and we are fighting H1B visa, de do. So we will be good, we'll have more tech coolies working for you. This is quite disgraceful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just have one small point to make. I talked about social emotional learning and using psychology, behavioral science, neuroscience. China uses the same sciences, but for STEM. So they use these the data collection of children and how they are learning, whether they're sleeping or awake in class, whether they understand or not, how many times do they take to do a problem. All of that, they use it for STEM. And that's the difference.
Thank you.
Okay, two more questions.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, ma'am. As you talked about STEM, so my question was related to STEM. That in our Rishihood Foundation program, we have subjects like Understanding Bharat and Global Grand Challenges, where we learn about the Bharat's perspective related to the world problems. So these subjects that are originally from the domain of social science and humanities, how can these be used in STEM?
So I think STEM should be STEM. I think you have to keep this separate. You have to learn to be a good mathematician. Mathematics is mathematics. Now, if there is Indian knowledge system of mathematics, you should learn that. But you should learn it as mathematics, not as propaganda or emotional nostalgia. Don't learn some Vedic math or some physics of just for the sake of learning it because it is Indian. You have to because that way you are more compatible with the past rather than compatible with the future. You have to produce the next physics, the next quantum entanglement theories, quantum computing. You have to do that rather than saying that, okay, we had robotics, so we will just live with that. You should build the best robots. India is not building robots at all. India has got very little competitiveness in robots. We're catching up with what was done many years ago by other people. So I would say the Indian knowledge systems have a very important role in understanding our history and our background with the intention of inspiring us for future developments. So the study of the Rishis should be how do we become Rishis for the future? They are the research innovators. How do we become the future innovators rather than just put mala on them and praise them and sing and song and say, okay, they were Rishis and I don't have to do anything because we had Rishis. So we cannot glorify the past and escape from the need to compete for the future.
I would like to say that there are wonderful things from the past. For example, if you do Ganita Shastram, a lot of aesthetics, number theory, combinatorics, and prosody, along with mathematics, is available in a grantha like Leelavati. So I think when you're young, you learn these shastras like Ganitam and in Sanskrit in the original language. I think it enriches you, it makes you think in many different perspectives. But then, as Rajiv says, as you do advanced work, then these will aid you. The aesthetics and all will aid you, but you need to be the best and seek excellence.
I think for mind development, these are fantastic.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Fantastic for making you creative, attention span. We're losing attention span in this country. We keep talking about the great Rishis. Imagine they are the opposite of attention span problem. They have the huge attention span. No human beings ever had that much attention span as the Rishis. How deep for a long time they could, So we are going the opposite way while we are praising them.
Thank you very much, students, and thank you very much, authors. I would now...
Good. Good job. Good question.
And with that, I thank everybody who is here. Thank you, Rajiv ji. Thank you, Vijaya ji, for this wonderful opportunity. And now we will end this formally, but we will continue this discussion outside. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, students.